host. Hello everybody, nice to see you guys again. We have learned the history and usage of microwave in the last course, and today we are going to learn how large is the microwave bandwidth. Before answering this question, let us first take a look at the methods in which microwave bandwidth is manifested. Typically, there are two manifestations: air interface capacity and throughput. So what's the difference between the two? Microwave transmission also uses pipes. The capability of the pipes is the air interface capacity. In this respect, it's very much like a water pipe. Now let's have a look at how air interface capacity is calculated. Have a look at this equation. Just kidding. This is too complicated. This is how we calculate air interface capacity. We can interpret the air interface capacity as equal to the product of the spectral bandwidth, n-digit code, and the code efficiency. Let's have a look at what this means. Let's first talk about channel spacing. Sticking to the water pipe analogy, channel spacing represents the cross-sectional area of the water pipe. Doubling the channel space means doubling the pipe area. N-digit code. Before getting into n-digit code, we must first understand the modulation schemes. The formula on the left can be used for the calculation of arbitrary modulation, and the modulation scheme of microwaves is mainly amplitude phase modulation, which is usually expressed in QAM. The larger the value, the higher the modulation scheme, and the more information a unit spectrum can carry. This is similar to a shower nozzle. Increasing the nozzle holes increases the amount of water flow. Take 16 QAM as an example. 16 is 2 to the 4th power. That is, in the 16 QAM modulation scheme, a single spectrum can carry 4 bits of information. So can you calculate under the same spectrum? The bandwidth of 256 QAM is how many times greater than 16 QAM? It's relatively easy to calculate. 256 is 2 to the 8th power. That is, a single spectrum of 8 bits of information, making it 2 times more efficient than 16 QAM. So the bandwidth is about 2 times that of 16 QAM. Finally, let's take a look at code efficiency. Not all information is used to transmit services. Some information is used as channel overhead for purposes like error correction. Code efficiency refers to the proportion of service data in all transmitted data. We can think of channel overhead as the walls of a water pipe. Thicker walls means greater protection and a strong anti-interference ability. But higher channel overhead also means lower code efficiency and transmission capacity. Thinner walls means lower protection and weak anti-interference ability. But the channel overhead will be lower, and code efficiency and transmission capacity will be higher. Now we understand what air interface capacity is. To put it simply, air interface capacity is the hard pipe capacity modulated by microwaves. Then what is the throughput? We will discuss this next. IEEE defines throughput as the maximum data transmitting and receiving rate of a device without frame loss. In the context of microwaves, usually throughput is greater than air interference capacity because the defined Ethernet frame gap and preamble are too long and the transmission efficiency is relatively low. Microwaves can use fewer bytes instead, improving transmission efficiency of the air interface. In the end, a 100 megabits per second microwave air interface performs externally at a greater throughput than 100 megabits per second. But for different packet sizes, its performance also varies. Here we use 64-byte and 1518-byte for calculation, and the throughput difference was close to 40 megabits per second. Put it simply, the difference between air interface capacity and throughput is that air interface capacity is the actual pipe capacity of the microwave link and cannot be changed. But throughput is the external performance of the microwave link, which changes according to the size of transmitted service packets. So how do we increase a microwave's throughput? According to this formula, throughput is dependent on channel spacing, n-digit code, and transmission efficiency. So to increase throughput, we must increase channel spacing, increase the modulation scheme and code efficiency, increase the microwave air interface usage rate. This section has little content and could not be viewed in full screen. The first method for increasing channel spacing is increasing the spectrum from 28 MHz to 56 MHz. Assuming the hardware doesn't change, this will double the bandwidth. The second method is using cross-polarization interference canceller to increase the efficiency of the existing spectrum. The bandwidth is increased by doubling the utilization of the same spectrum in both horizontal and vertical directions. The third method is when the original spectrum is increased to the limit. More bandwidth can be obtained through binding multiple such spectrums. The most direct of enhancing spectrum utilization is by increasing the modulation scheme so that the unit spectrum can carry more information, and by enhancing code efficiency to increase the proportion of service data in all transmitted data. Generally, the higher the modulation scheme, the higher the code efficiency, because high modulation schemes are more suitable for short-range transmission, and our current goal is to increase bandwidth rather than distance. Finally, let's discuss how to increase transmission efficiency. When we discussed the difference between air interface capacity and throughput, we mentioned that with the same air interface capacity, to achieve greater throughput requires increasing transmission efficiency. For the headers of data frames, in point-to-point transmission, large amounts of the same bytes, such as MAC and IP addresses, are repeatedly transmitted, lowering efficiency. Frame header compression replaces large numbers of duplicate fields with a small number of bytes as frames pass the ingress, and restores them as they pass the egress. This is a highly efficient transmission method, and under these conditions, the transmission of short packets of 64 bytes can reach 280% efficiency, equivalent to an air interface of 360 megabits per second. When all packets are 64 bytes, 1 gigabit per second throughput can be achieved. Now we are developing payload compression on the basis of frame header compression to compress the redundant service payload to further enhance transmission efficiency. This concludes today's lecture. I believe that we have broadened our understanding of microwave bandwidth. We are still exploring ways to enhance microwave capacity. We welcome your comments and suggestions about our courses. See you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.